Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. This new season of For Honor has been really interesting, hasn't it? It's definitely Wulin focused, which I can appreciate, but I'm also noticing that it doesn't seem to have a lot of consistency in what it seems to be trying to do, and I will explain. Lots of people have come to me saying that they don't quite get what's going on lore-wise this season, so I will try to explain as best as I can. Essentially, with the end of the Inquisition season and the Big Vela banquet turned bloodbath, Heathmore is, frankly, exhausted. There's a lack of food, resources, and everyone's feeling pretty out of sorts and depressed. Well, suddenly, the Wulin are now sending out invitations to all of Heathmore for members of every faction to come and join in this annual festival of their land called the Zhongyuanjie, or the Hungry Ghost Festival. This is a festival that is kind of like the Mexican Day of the Dead, in which the spirits of the dead come back to Earth for food, drink, and fun. But there are particular rules to this festival if you don't want to upset the spirits. For example, don't eat the food offerings, and don't go out after sundown, and don't sit in the seats reserved for the ghost, and don't disrespect the ancestors. See, the Wulin deliberately invited outsiders to this festival, knowing that they would not and could not abide by these rules. The Heathmore factions are just too exhausted, hungry, and dejected to care about silly rules. So, sure enough, rules are being violated. People eat the offerings, and shrines are desecrated, and this will all inevitably lead to the spirits of the ancestors lashing back at the factions for their disrespect. And that will undoubtedly lead into the Halloween event, which has been leaked now, it seems. There's been a fair bit of talk lately about the hint that For Honor will be doing some kind of crossover with Dying Light 2 in November or early November. Now, I've not played Dying Light 2, but I do know it's a zombie game, and that already has me a bit intrigued. The last time For Honor did a crossover with another game for Halloween, we got the Dead by Daylight crossover, which, while some weren't fond of it, I greatly enjoyed it. As a Dead by Daylight player and For Honor player at the same time, I really got into the spirit of things. But here, as someone who knows, well, really nothing about Dying Light, I can't really say what I can expect, but that does lead me to a discussion that I've been interested in having. Zombies. I've said my piece about zombies in a few videos, like in my fantastical history video on the undead, where I said that zombies weren't really my favorite horror icon. However, that doesn't mean I can't play games about zombies, nor does it mean I can't appreciate zombies as a medium if there's creativity involved. Take Monster Musume if you need an example.
I don't know. You're a zombie and you're pretty lively.
Yeah, well, that's true, but I'm kind of a special case, you know?
In fact, a few of my year suggestions that I've done, I've proposed the idea of zombie infestations plaguing Heathmore. You know, as a matter of fact, I think I said something similar to that when I was doing my Wulin-based video. Have a look. The factions are using this time to rally and plan a counterattack, but to buy them time, and because Gao Lei is overreaching now because he's scared, the Wulin launch a surprise of their own. They use a demonic curse from their homeland upon their own dead warriors, turning them into Jiangshi, or hopping vampires. And this will create the Halloween event, in which it's like a survival game mode against scores of hopping vampires. While this is going on, the knights, samurai, and Viking are pursuing options when a centurion arrives with a solution. See, in my suggested idea, the Wulin turn their own dead soldiers into Jiangshi using a curse from their homeland. But in this scenario, in this actual scenario, it seems that what's happening is that they intend to use the backlash of the ancestral spirits who have been offended to do the same thing, only instead of Jiangshi, it's zombies. So could the ancestral spirits possess the bodies of the dead warriors and launch a zombie plague? Well, that seems to be the consensus. And if that's the idea, I mean, I'm fine with that for the most part, because zombies would lend itself to a creative set of cosmetics, game modes, and lore concepts. But that also leads to some questions. Now, before we get into the questions, I want to say this. When we get into the Halloween portion of things, when we actually get to see that kind of stuff happen, I intend to release a video talking about how these historical cultures would actually react to a zombie plague. Like, what would knights, samurai, Vikings, and Chinese warriors actually do in response to a zombie outbreak? What would that look like? But let's save that for later. Let's focus on just talking about this season. The first question that needs to be raised about this season is, what is with all the Journey to the West iconography? Throughout much of the season, we've seen tons of Journey to the West imagery, you know, with the Monkey King, you got the Zubaije, the Shuwajing, all that stuff everywhere. And that's great. I love that story. I'm currently doing an audio reading of that book on my other channel if you want to hear it. But what does any of that have to do with Dying Light 2 or zombies? I know Shaolin is set to get some sort of Sun Wukong skin later, which is neat, but what does Sun Wukong have to do with zombies or Dying Light? Don't get me wrong, I'm not against any of this, but these two things don't seem to mix well. It's like the developers had an alternative idea for this season, but then they suddenly got the green light to collab with Dying Light 2 and decided to cram the idea in last minute. And I could be wrong. I'm not saying it'll turn out bad either. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is, thematically, well, I just can't blame anyone for being a little bit surprised by this. I know I was surprised. I thought this was going to be very Wulin Chinese culture focused. But Dying Light 2 has nothing to do with China. It has nothing to do with Chinese culture or ghosts. It's just a zombie survival game. So, and it's set in a post-apocalyptic world in the future. So, it's a little off-putting, but I'm not against it per se. Now, there are some things about the way this season is going that I can say are net positives. I'm not saying everything's bad, far from it. Dying Light 2, from what I've seen, is a pretty gritty and dark survival horror game that takes itself seriously, and For Honor, which has recently run the gambit between gritty and serious and goofy and lighthearted, may actually take a step into the grittiness in the later half of the season if it melds well with Dying Light. Creating a post-apocalyptic scenario with zombies, overgrown maps, lacking of resources, and people becoming so desperate they turn on each other, there's opportunity here for some real heavy stuff if the developers are prepared to walk that route, and if they carry it beyond just this Halloween crossover, there could be a lot we explore in later seasons about how this impacted the different cultures. I confess, though, I have my doubt that this will be the case, but at the very least, I hope that the inclusion of a zombie outbreak would at least spark some discussion or at least some changes in Heathmore. But you gotta wonder, though, I mean, what are the Wulin thinking? Hell, what is Horkos thinking? Because after all, lore has indicated that Horkos financed this whole festival, so why are they willingly letting this happen? Is this another instance of Horkos simply poking the bear and acting surprised when the bear bites? Did they expect zombies? And if they did not, then what did they expect? What were they hoping would happen? It's come to my attention that Horkos doesn't really know what it wants anymore. Apollyon at least was clear that she wanted war, but what is Astrid even after at this point? To defeat Chimera? Well, good job. They're effectively neutered. Chimera hasn't been relevant in almost 2 years. Is it to create new wars like Apollyon did? Well, releasing a zombie plague is more likely to unify Heathmore, not divide it. Maybe her goal is to pull a Joker and just cause chaos for the sake of chaos. Well, good to know Astrid is now just the de facto villain of this world, thus removing any sense of nuance this world could possibly have. No longer is this a world where cultures and belief systems and lifestyles clash in a unique way, creating new conflicts, understandings, and choices. It's just an evil lady who constantly pokes beehives to see how many people can get stung. No longer are the heroes and villains so alike they blur. Now the villains are so clear-cut they have their own organization. No longer are the conflicts understandable and even realistic. Now we're actually going to summon zombies just to throw Heathmore into a nightmare state. And please don't misunderstand me here. I'm not saying the zombie idea is bad. I'm not saying we can't have silly or unrealistic conflicts. After all, the Jorogumo event remains my absolute favorite event mode. I'll even acknowledge that this season is still doing well aesthetically. I do like the homage to Chinese theater. I do like the battle pass. I love the designs and cosmetics. And I'm still excited for the deception reveal with the zombie outbreak and the wrath of the ancestral spirits. All of that is good, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I just don't know how to feel about the Dying Light thing, and I'm still just so frustrated at the Horkos involvement. I'm not upset that Dying Light and For Honor are crossing over, but I gotta feel bad about the Wulin. I was hoping that this season would be entirely theirs, but now they gotta share the spotlight a bit with another game franchise that's crossing over, which seems a bit disappointing as far as I'm concerned. But hey, you know what, that's me. I'll grant that. That's kind of a me personally thing. I wanted to see the Wulin finally get their day in the sun. Particularly when they had the idea of the ancestors causing the issue. That would have been a very creative idea, but whatever. And then you have this Horkos thing. Look, I've gone on about how I'm not a fan of the way Horkos has been handled in the lore, and there will be a follow-up video about that later, I can assure you, because I have far more to say. But for now, just know that if something isn't done about them soon, this game will quickly plummet in the lore department, and frankly, it can't afford to fall much further than it already has. It's becoming far too repetitive, far too predictable, and honestly, dull, which I hate to say about For Honor since I love this game so much. Honestly, though, I will say that this season is turning out really well. Like I said, there's a lot to love about this season, but with the announcement that Dying Light 2 and For Honor might be crossing over for the Halloween event, I'm curious how that will tie into what the Wulin are doing. I'm curious about how that will tie into the operatic themes that we've seen so far. I'm curious about the direction they'll take. Will they keep it that the ancestors are the ones that caused everything? Or will they say it's the Dying Light 2 stuff that caused everything? What will they take from Dying Light 2 to add into this game? Will we actually get gunplay? Will we get unique modern age tech thrown in with cosmetics? What will Dying Light 2 do in their own game? Will they add For Honor related stuff like a Warden helmet as a cosmetic? What will this look like? Because I was very impressed with what we got from Dead by Daylight. I'm more disappointed that Dead by Daylight didn't bother doing a whole lot on their end to borrow from For Honor, but hey, that's beside the point. My whole point being that I wanted to see For Honor really approach the Wulin and their culture and their ideals in this season. And it's looking like it's not even the Wulin who planned this whole thing. It's just Horkos funding the whole plan. And it looks like we're going to be having Dying Light 2 step in to fill in for the Halloween event. Which, while not a bad thing by any means, I can't help but feel a little disappointed by. But at the same time, it hasn't even come out yet. So we'll just have to wait and see what else this season has to offer. There's still a lot of time to go. There's still a lot of cool stuff that could happen. We still got Hero Fest to go. More cosmetics, more executions, more things to see. Still a lot to look forward to, guys, so please don't take this as a Ravens being a Debbie Downer. I just kind of want to know what's going on. I just kind of want to see what's happening, and that was the point of this video, to share with you guys what we know, to share with you what's being revealed, and my personal thoughts on it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.